Hi there, Susan. How are you?
I
Welcome
am
to the
very
latest
well,
series,
David. Happy Friday to you.
and a happy Friday to you. I don't know if this will actually go out on Friday, but people can feel the Friday love when they
Feel the
feel
Friday
the
vibes.
Friday vibes and that sort of stuff. So, welcome. We've got Susan Maddison from Discover Financial Services with us today. Just a kind of quick intro. GCS, as I always say, is a technology recruitment specialist. We've got offices in Europe and the US and cover kind of global technology. We have a part of our business called Connect, which is all about connecting expert talent to innovative companies. We actually work with Discover and with Susan. So she knows the expert talent we can provide, and we know the innovative company that Discover is. So it's very exciting. And the Leader Series is a series of recorded conversations that we do on kind of YouTube and podcasts, really talking to leaders within business and technology about their thoughts, one about the kind of current situation, two about how we're going to kind of get out of the current situation, but also really it's about kind of understanding leadership and understanding people that kind of drive forward that business and those technologies. So Susan is within the works as a senior manager within Discover. Discover, for those that don't know, maybe watching in the UK, is one of the major credit card companies and digital payments companies. She works in the apps dev area, and we're going to find out more about the solutions that she's developed. 20 years in the IT industry, so lots of experience and
adventures, I call them, David.
Yeah, adventures
in IT.
Right. Challenges, yes. But yeah, no, really excited to speak to her. She has spoken on a few of our panels before, so it's great to kind of get her involved and get her talking on the Leader Series side. So Susan, obviously I've introduced yourself, but do you want to just kind of give a quick introduction to yourself, what you're about, where you maybe work, what sort of kind of technology areas for the techies watching, and then we can kind of really kind of get into more depth about the sort of kind of business decisions and technology decisions you're making.
Cool, sure. So I'm Susan Maddison. As David said, I've been in the IT industry for 20 years. Started off as a Java dev, did that for a good few years, but then decided I was better at managing people and projects and went up the leader route. So I've been doing that for the past decade, always in software development and delivery. At Discover, it's particularly exciting because they are very much into the cloud, into AWS. And moving from batch file processing to more event-based, like real-time streaming of data. So it's a very exciting modern technology stack. So lots of techies are keen to work with us. But yeah, I have a team of 100 plus, cross-functional team of DevOps, Dev, QA, delivery managers, Scrum Masters, etc., etc. So it's never a dull moment.
No, but is that a global team then, or is it all based in the UK or?
It's interesting actually. So Discover mainly US based, but they took the decision a few years ago to nearshore to the UK because they can get similar top engineering talent for a little bit less money. But no, it's not just the UK. I have a team in the US. Recently put some offshore to India to save a few pennies, and also have a couple of teams in Poland as well. So it is, not widely spread team, but yeah, there's multiple teams, multiple regions.
In the past, you'd been traveling around and visiting different offices and spending a lot of time commuting and that sort of stuff. And now you're in your house.
Yeah, no, I think my last business trip, Discover headquarters in Chicago. So I managed to get over in February, just before lockdown, and got to experience -10.
It does get, I have actually been to the Discover offices in Chicago. It does get very, very cold, doesn't it? They call it the Windy City. You can't really imagine. It's just basically this insanely cold wind just blowing at you really, really hard, isn't it? And it's snowy and all that sort of stuff.
Or stay inside.
It's a nice place though, Chicago. People don't really talk about Chicago, do they? In a kind of like America thing. People don't really think about it, do they? It's not really well known, but when you go there, it's a really nice place, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I really, really love it. I've only been a couple of times, but I like it as a city, and I'm not really a city girl. I like the trees and the suburbs. But yeah, Chicago's great. Lots of dogs, lots of yummy food, and not as busy as, say, like New York, would
No,
be.
it
So yeah,
seems
I
like
do like Chicago.
kind of like clean. I mean, I spent quite a long time in New York, so we've got an office there, but it's like a clean, organized New York, isn't it? You know, it's
Yes,
kind
that
of
is exactly it. It's very well described.
and a very big place as well. Obviously, it's like the second or third city, isn't it? Really, just that is that no,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
never
yeah.
really talk about it very much. So that is it's interesting, and obviously Discover is a very big presence out there, and really great
Hmm.
company to work with. So from yourself, obviously 20 years in the kind of the IT industry,
Yeah.
and the way we usually start this conversation is obviously we're going through a real significant business challenge at the moment. It'd be interesting to see how it's kind of affecting Discover, but you've worked in a number of other companies, kind of Virgin Media, et cetera, in the past. What are the main kind of significant business challenges that you've had to deal with as a leader in the past?
Oh, going straight in with the difficult ones,
Yeah.
David. Okay. So obviously, when you're a leader, I've learned over the years that it's people and money. Those are your main focuses.
Okay.
So I think a lot of
Yeah.
the business challenges are to do with people and money.
Yeah.
People, as you know, humans, they're very varied and challenging at times.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of people challenges,
Mm.
and with the business ones, it's knowing when to continue or stop investing your time and money
Okay.
in people,
Yeah.
teams, projects, or even businesses.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of small startup businesses from like 10 or less
Mm.
full-time employees, contractors. And, you do have to bite the bullet sometimes and say, oh, this project's not working, or even this whole business isn't working, and stuff,
Right. Okay.
calling time on it.
Yeah.
And same with people. I'm a massive fan of coaching, mentoring, and developing people, but time is money, and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to realize that maybe getting another resource in rather than continuing with one. So this is where hiring and recruiting is very important.
No, exactly.
Getting
And,
it right.
and sometimes that's just due to the kind of culture or where the project is, I guess, or the business is. It's not necessarily a reflection on the person itself, as it's more a reflection on what skills you need now.
Yeah, that's very true. A lot of people make it mean that they're terrible, they'll never be successful, or they failed.
Yeah.
But sometimes an example I can give, I had a digital pen and paper business. This was like in the mid 2000s.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And really interesting technology. So real paper, like write with a real pen, translates
Right.
it into
Yeah.
digital. But we always kind of knew it was a stopgap, and tablets were coming up. So it's when do you make that decision? And so it was successful. It kind of paid for everyone for a good few years. Articles in the FT, but it was never going to last. So yeah,
That's interesting. So when Steve Jobs stood up on that Apple thing and said, "Right, here's the iPhone," everyone was like, "Oh,
damn
damn."
it! There goes my business.
And so why? I mean, that's quite an interesting kind of challenge. Obviously, business.
Hmm.
What did you do at that point then? What was the kind of reaction there? Because obviously you've built a good product, as you said it was being successful, and then someone came along. It's like I had a candle, and now someone's invented the light bulb. What happened that day two, as it were?
Well, you do just literally have to take stock and going, yes, we could be profitable. You take it down to the numbers. A lot of
Yeah.
business, as much as I'm very emotional, intuitive, that kind of thing, business is based on numbers. So it's data-driven decisions, and it is okay, we can keep going with this many clients, but we can already see the existing clients are starting to vote for tablets instead of the traditional pen and paper solution. So you should make a decision based on the numbers, and not make it mean too much about you, as you're saying, you as a person or your abilities as a leader, and just wrap it up as well as possible and take the learnings and move on.
If you knew tablets were coming, did you just feel the kind of the firepower, as it were, of someone like Apple or whatever, Microsoft or whatever, just you couldn't kind of match up? You knew it was coming, so you might as well kind of make it, but they would be able to develop a better product or something?
Well, no, it was more just the human aspect. You could see with the kids that it was all going digital, and they're like, everyone's glued to their phones and their screens.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can, use the the pen tips and actually write on a tablet and a screen.
Mm.
So it was more, you know, just really coming to terms, as much as I love pen and paper and love
Yeah.
the physical act of writing, just seeing that, you know, technology was going to be the winner overall. You know,
Yeah.
the NHS, they all use the tablets now, touch screens, et cetera,
Yeah.
even when you're checking in at the GP. Because, you know, paper is, you know, it can burn, you can lose it. So it's just kind of really coming to terms with that. Okay, yeah, it could be hard pushed. There's always going to be those niche people that, you know, love pen and paper. But, you know, the reality is the world is digital now.
Strange thing about me is
Bite the bullet.
strange thing about me is that for about 5 years of my life, when I finished university, actually for about 10 years, I used to rip off corners of pieces of paper and roll them up and then eat them. It was a very strange thing. And then I had to be hypnotized to stop doing it. It was like a crazy, and I went to this hypnotist, and people always ask about hypnotism and stuff, and they actually hypnotized me, and then I stopped doing it straight away. So
it's a very strange
Move
habit.
away from the paper, yeah. But yeah, I think they said it was like kind of an unconscious kind of habit that you developed over these years. So yeah, it's strange, but yeah. But you know, for me, that was obviously a big change. But yeah, but it helped not having pieces of paper around everywhere to eat and that sort of stuff.
Oh, exactly. It's funny you mentioned that. I did a stint. One of my side gigs was life coach, and I'm actually a master practitioner of hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming. So I can also rid you of your fears and weirdness if you want to.
It's amazing. And do you find, because I was astonished for myself, and obviously conversation takes a little. I've astonished myself that it actually worked, like it properly worked. So obviously there's a real power in it, you know. And do you use that? Obviously you don't really tell you've got people you manage, right? But
they're all hypnotized and under my spell.
They will do what you want them to do. But do you find that is a useful thing? You know, would you say as a leader to understand that sort of kind of NLP side of things, and kind of how you use your voice to get reactions?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I always say the level of your success will never exceed your level of personal development. And I found NLP to be a weird and wonderful thing. It's like really weird how this stuff works, but it definitely works, and faster than hypnosis. And I find, every day, you know, as a leader, one of your things is communication, influence, woo. And the more you actually understand how you work, your own self-awareness, but then how humans work and how people's brains work. And that's been really useful during COVID, because everyone is very different and everyone reacts very differently. And one of the in the NLP world, the meaning of communication is the response you get. And so for me, if my team is not functioning, someone is not performing, the project's not delivering, there's got to be something I am doing or not doing to make that happen. So it's really just having that heightened level of self-awareness, but then being able to read other people and flex your leadership communication styles to get them to understand what they need to do and help them become their best. So I definitely think having things like NLP in your toolbox, or just, you know, a deeper understanding of how humans and brains works, really helps you.
And that's the sort of thing you can learn and kind of do videos on and courses on, and
hypnotize yourself to not chew bits of paper. That'll be very distracting in interviews, David, if you're doing that right now.
That's right, it would be terrible. So I've got it all up on the screen behind me. So for yourself, obviously, as I know, like Discover is pretty much kind of entirely kind of working from home now, and that's been such for 5 months, and I think it's going to be, like with many major companies, it's going to be like that for a good period of time. So how have you felt that yourself? Has that been a kind of positive thing or a negative thing for you? How was your own personal kind of reaction?
Well, much to popular belief, I am not extroverted. I'm actually very, very introverted. And as much as I do the people thing, I do like people, I'm quite happy being at home. It is a bit, you have to learn how to manage your energy, because you are, you know, literally in the same space. There's something about the mental challenge of being within the same four walls. So you need to do something to break that up a bit. But the
Yeah.
positive for me is, many people know I'm a crazy dog lady, and I have a giant dog, a Great Dane. So I
Great
get to
Dane.
spend all day with him. Yeah.
That's right.
He
Yeah.
might pop in at some point during this
Well,
interview.
I'm
You
quite
never know.
excited to bring him in at the end. This is awesome. I mean, you told me I'm 6'4". You told me standing up, he's 6'4" as well. So
Yes,
impressive.
yes, he is. Very impressive. But yeah, no, I found yeah, being at home is actually okay for me. I haven't missed being in the office too much because I'm still interacting with everyone every day, and
Yeah.
back to back WebExes, Zooms,
Mm.
etc. But for me, it's been really lovely to be at home. I'm strangely actually having a lunch hour, at least half an hour, which in the
No.
office that didn't used to happen for whatever reason. So I get to eat healthy, get to make my smoothies in the morning, get to have a healthy lunch break, stand out in the garden, walk the
Yeah.
dog morning and night. So it's interesting, and myself and others seem to be the same productivity or more 9 to 6.
I think that's key, isn't it? I think that was what we're seeing, and what the leaders and stuff are saying, is that if you can kind of run your projects and run your teams right,
Yeah.
that you can get the same level of productivity with probably a kind of, let's say, a happier workforce. I
Yes.
think it's
Yes.
really important, to identify those kind of key areas as a leader where maybe people aren't performing, or how do I set it up right? Because if you don't, then it can really kind of fall away very, very quickly. And if people are struggling, they can also get lost because you can't see them.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yes.
And obviously you're a very successful kind of leader within the IT world, and you've worked for some big companies. So, and it seems from talking to you that you think about it quite a lot. You actually,
Yes.
like, you've got a kind of strategies about how you do this, rather than kind of doing it off the cuff. So have you thought much about, kind of the future now, and your strategy kind of as a leader for the future, how you might change the way you interact and work with people? I mean, let's say, for instance, like this starts for another 6 months or 12 months. So it's like you've developed a whole project like this. How will you do it differently? Or will you do it differently?
Well, I love how you mentioned strategy, because I said, earlier on that, being a leader is all about people and money, but strategy is the other pillar in there. And there is, it might seem that when you're approaching things, it's very random, but there is always a method to the madness. And as soon as COVID hit and we started working from home, obviously I was brought into Discover to be people manager, because that is my strength, my prowess. And I made sure myself and managers reporting into me, and other leaders, the Scrum Masters and tech leads, I made sure that they knew, because it's one thing as a leader, you can never assume that people just know stuff. That's a very dangerous thing to do. I made sure that they knew to make extra effort to talk to people, to make sure they're in daily contact with people, and particularly people who are perhaps single or living in a room or on their own. And just to really pay attention more to people's, how are they? Try and get people to turn on cameras. You can't make people turn on cameras, but at least in one-to-ones, try and get people to, see you, and for you to see them, so you can check on them physically, because you can read people's emotions better when you can physically see them. But just to really, really pay attention more, and put a bit more effort into the listening and the people side of things. And particularly, we've had a few new starters as well. I've had 6 during lockdown. And even more so then. That's been the weirdest experience. I'm actually going to go to the office on Tuesday, and I'm going to meet one of my new starters, who I haven't, I've been talking to him for a good couple of months now. I've never physically met him.
It's mad,
So particularly with the new starters, make sure everyone's talking.
Yeah, that's right. And for such a big company, when you're joining big teams, I guess it can be quite kind of frightening. It's like kind of first day at work, but you can't make yourself known, because usually after the first week or two, you've been for a few coffees, had a few beers, you've had lunch, you've been in a few project meetings, and then you're kind of like, I'm kind of in the game now. But you can't do that, can you, with your first day? Or it's different, I suppose. So.
And also what I love that Discover did is for all the leadership, and this is, you know, the CIOs, CEOs, etc., to be visible and to be communicating even more, sending out, you know, weekly emails, and these communications, emails, videos, ask me anything sessions. There is definitely more of a human element to it, you know, like genuinely caring about, you know, people's situations, the kids being at home or kids going back to school. But there's definitely been more a softer touch to the communications, and more of the leaders in Discover being visible and actually showing up and, you know, letting people know they're listening and actually understanding their situation.
I mean, it's easier, isn't it? You know, it's easier if you haven't got to be traveling around.
Right.
You spend half your time traveling in a plane or something like that. I'm assuming if you're the proper global C-suite of kind of Discover, then you're basically in a plane 75% of your time, aren't you? You know, you're traveling all the time. So not having to do that frees up a huge amount of time for you to deal with people and deal with people everywhere and anywhere, and people at you know, a large amount of time. I mean, at GCS, we do these kind of monthly awards. So we've done it virtually for the last 5 months, and we celebrate different performances, and, you know, and
cool.
everyone everywhere for the whole company, including the kind of the guys in the offshore services and that sort of thing. And it seems to work really well. It's what we always did before, but it's just easier to organize and easier to kind of get people together, isn't it? And that sort of thing. So, and obviously now we're kind of moving on to kind of tech side. So obviously you work within the DevOps area, work obviously background applications development. We know that obviously Discover is a very big and you know, innovative kind of agile site as well. So obviously it's kind of set to work in this sort of kind of collaborative, you know, remote kind of, you know, way. What advice would you give to kind of other leaders that are looking at their kind of development process and how they're going to kind of develop using kind of DevOps and different kind of, you know, projects? What do you think the key things are on the technology side for managers who are starting off development projects now?
Yeah, well, I think firstly, from a pure business standpoint, I'd make that decision going, right, am I going to do this in-house or not? Because it's a big investment. If you're going to do it properly, you need to invest in your people, process systems, etc. So I think that would be my first call out, is actually make that big decision. Oh, here he is.
There he is.
There is start that one again. So the first thing I would say is to, you know, as a business, are you going to develop this in-house? That's a big decision to make, because it's a big investment. If you're going to do it properly, you need to have good people, and you need to give them the time, space, money to actually make it happen. So that'd be my first call out. But, you know, if you've already made that decision and you're going to build the tech in-house, even if you've got, you know, some kind of vendor in-house split, I'd really go back to the basics and understand where you are actually at in terms of maturity. So in terms of basic software development, good practices, best practices, and say when you start to go down the DevOps automation route, you have to really understand where you are. Like, and it's really simple things. It sounds scary as a techie person, but is everyone checking in their code every day or week? Are they leaving it for months? Like, and I've been in some companies where they don't even have a source control system. I'm praying that no one does that now, but it's that level of really take stock of where you are right now, and then pick what level of automation you're going to aim for. So at the moment, what I'm doing for my area, for EPP, the enterprise payments platform that we're developing, is, you know, what does extreme automation actually mean for everyone? And that's in terms of automating the infrastructure, and automating the code, and automating the testing. Because then at least, you know, you have your baseline of where you are.
RPA and things like that, you know, is that what we're talking about here? Kind of, you know.
Well, that's next level stuff. I'm not even aiming for RPA at the moment, or robotics process automation. So it's really understand your baseline and where you want to go. And if RPA is one of the things you want to do, then go for it. But I think it's really framing where you want to go, framing the problem where you're at, framing where you want to go, and then you can see the gaps and then start bedding that into your goals and objectives of the year. But I would definitely say, whether you're a small business, big enterprise, the more automation you can do, obviously, is going to be more cost effective.
Yeah.
from both
Yeah.
a monetary perspective, but then from a people man-hour perspective.
Yeah.
So really understand, if you don't have people who are advocates of automation, or if you don't have anyone in your business that are advocates and experts and have the industry experience of automation, I would go and start learning about that. And it's not just the robotics, because that's a bit next level to automate your business processes, but from the code and development deployment perspective.
Yeah, and with regards to kind of automation, I mean, this kind of leads me on to my, obviously, GCS recruitment side of things.
Yeah.
How do you think that changes the types of people that you look? How do you think that kind of recruitment within development and DevOps and stuff may change kind of going forward, if that becomes a more prevalent kind of way of working?
Yeah. So I should talk on this because it's something I'm very passionate about. So, we're in what they're calling this fourth industrial revolution,
Yep.
where we've got the next wave of technologies, so whether it's AI, machine learning, robotics,
IoT,
crypto, blockchain, IoT, all of that kind of sexy new stuff. And it's the fusion of those technologies that are going to change the way we live, work, and interact with each other over the next decade, just how the internet changed everything over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And one of the things people find very scary is going, oh my gosh, the robots are going to take my jobs, I'm going to be fired, which, some cases that might be true. But, and this is why I'm super passionate about leadership, David, because in every industrial revolution, it's been the leaders who not only lead it, but they thrive in it.
Yeah.
And even as a developer, so I discover really investing in top engineering talent and developing leaders within the organization, because even as a leader, one of the things that, robots, AI is never going to mimic is the human brain and the creativity and the imagination that the brain does.
With a
like,
fifth industrial revolution.
Not yet. It's going to take, trust me, it's going to take a while to really, really nail that one.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit we have as humans with our big, beautiful brains. And the more you really understand that and have the self-confidence to know you're not going to be taken over by a robot, and that you really think like a leader, going, okay, right, they're going to automate this part of my job, or what can I do better? Where is my true value? And it will be in coming up with, okay, how do I build this thing, or how do I solve this business problem? How do I innovate?
One of the things that we've talked about with yourself on a previous webinar with Connect on the diversity side is obviously you're a female leader within the IT world, and we had another lady we spoke to earlier in the week, Denise. I think the message that I got from her is that obviously compared to 20 years ago, things are much better in terms of
definitely.
And obviously there are people like yourself who are kind of role models, as it were, and aspiration figures now. My first question is, what more do you think has to change in order to, we know that the IT technical world, technology world itself is very male dominated, right? Particularly in the Western world. What do you think still needs to change in order to tip that balance?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's just the way it is?
No, this is a multi-layered problem. And I've really been looking into it in the last couple of years. I ran a women in tech community outside of Discover, and to really dive deep into this. Because I saw that, yes, it's changed over the last 20 years, but then when you started going into blockchain cryptocurrency, which I was getting into a couple of years ago, gone back 20 years, I was literally the only woman in the room again. I was like, what's going on here? And it's very interesting because still in the very technical areas. So if you're looking for a really amazing lead developer, or if you're looking for managers, directors, it's still a bit lightweight on the female representation. And I genuinely believe, and I tend to go on a rant if I'm on a stage or on these webinars, because we keep trying to fix it in the businesses. And this problem goes way back into the homes and into the parents and the grandparents and the schools. Because if you have those conscious or unconscious biases that, girls can't code, or Black people can't run companies, they can't be directors, or the LGBT community aren't able to think for themselves, whatever it is, because these biases do exist. unless you really nip them in the bud from a very young age, and get, re-educate the parents and the grandparents that actually, girls can play rugby, or,
Yeah.
you can pretty much be whoever you want if you have the right skills and training. You're always going to start to find this divide, where at some point someone will make a decision that, oh, techie subjects aren't for
That's
girls,
not for me.
or
Yeah.
so it's, for me, it goes way back. And I always say, whenever I'm on stage speaking about this, it's you in the audience, it's you who's listening, that you have influence over your kids, nieces, nephews, on what they can work in and who they can be in the future. So that's what my advice is, that you yourself need to become aware of what your biases are and what you really think, going, okay, so you generally think your daughter can't be a data scientist, or, your boy could never run his own company. When you start planting those thoughts in your kids' heads, then you'd be surprised what manifests a few decades later. So for me, it's a call out to everyone watching this, and the parents or people who have, kids, like, actually talk about how much you love your job, and how, anyone can do it if you have the right skill set, mindset to learn things. That's where I think the problem needs to really be focused.
I think it's really, really interesting, because I have this kind of conversation a lot, and I understand it kind of comes from education. It comes from the way and the interesting thing for me is I've got 3 daughters. So
do you now?
So I mean, to me, having 3 daughters really helps you to understand, like, the kind of female side, because you've seen them grow, right? And you care about them deeply, but you've seen them kind of grow from day one. And I don't know for myself, like, one's 16, one's 11, one's 8, right? So I don't know how it will kind of turn out. But I see for my 16-year-old, I run an IT recruitment business, right? So therefore, I should be very, very much kind of, as far as I can see, IT is the future, and you should kind of get into this career.
Oh, definitely.
I've said it on a number of occasions, but I do think within schools, if you think about how the psychology of, what girls are shown, or maybe even what kind of girls quite kind of like, and what they I don't know how that works, like playing with dolls, watching the certain type of TV, that sort of thing, as opposed to this type of TV. I've seen it happen, and I don't know whether I drive it. I don't think I do. I think I've been very, like, come watch football with me, come and do this, like, like different types of things. Maybe it's all about kind of gender based, but it's turned out that my daughter is doing English literature, sociology and psychology in her A-levels, right? Which are great subjects. But when we went to do the computer studies, like GCSE, when we went there, it was all boys surrounding there. The man who was introducing the subject, and I went there and I heard it, and even to me it wasn't interesting. I just I could see she was, I'm not going to do that, Dad. And I was like, well, I can kind of see it. I wouldn't have done it, but I think that I may have talked a bit too much from my own point of view here, but I think it's very difficult to control, even as a parent, even as someone that's probably trying to drive that decision,
Yeah. Now to get her to watch this podcast, this video. This is what I'm super passionate about doing this, because it's just the way your brain works. You can't be what you can't see. And if you don't see females up on the stage, or people, over at the pub and overhearing a bunch of women going, oh, great, I built this great software project, or I did this, or, it's really fun being in IT. If you don't hear or see people saying that, it's like, well, I can't be that. It sounds really silly, but, for the majority of people, they want to be able to see that someone like them is doing that, and they can be successful in that. And it's very challenging, because at schools, it's if you don't like the teacher, or if female or male, or if you're surrounded by boys, like I have older brothers, so I was quite happy being around boys, so that's how it worked out for me. But I completely get that, if you go into uni or your A levels, and like it's literally just all guys. It can be quite, you know, disconcerting and uncomfortable to think, oh God, I'm going to spend like the next 2-3 years of my life with those
these
people,
guys.
and I'm not sure I'm going to fit in or if they're going to like me and all that kind of stuff. But all I have to say to that is you can learn anything at any age. But yeah, this problem is a very multi-layered problem, and it's a difficult one to attack. But I just encourage everyone to actually talk about it, because then it's things like, you know, those apps on your phone, TikTok, whatever, someone designed that stuff.
Yeah, and it's all creative, isn't it?
Female.
And I think that goes back to what you're saying about automation, in the fact that obviously maybe in the past it was quite scientific, and maybe in the future IT will be more creative, because the actual scientific technology process is automated, whereas the actual invention and design is more creative. And maybe again that might change the dynamic somewhat. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, no, that's another thing I bang the drum about, is you don't need to be a full-on geek to be in IT. Like it literally takes an army to deliver software, and you have the project managers, you have the salespeople, the marketing people, the creative, the UI UX people, you have the recruiters, the HR people. There's so many different people that you need to run a business and design a product and build a product and deliver a product and get it out to market and support it. And when you actually look at the job titles and the specs, I swear it's about 20-30% are properly technical, like as in the coders and the builders. Everyone else is mildly technical, because it is useful to know about, you know, how it actually gets done. But then there's some people who are really not technical, and it's their job and their passion to come up with, you know, how are we going to innovate in payment services? How do people actually want to pay with stuff now? And come up and just draw it. They don't need to build the thing. They go, here you go. This is my idea. Make it happen.
I think it's very interesting. I think all of these changes will drive hopefully positive kind of outcomes in the future, and that's what we obviously can try and kind of help along as leaders and as as parents as well. So but that's great. So Susan, it's been great speaking to you today. Thank you very much for your time. I think we'll keep the dog in. I think it was great to see him at some point.
His name is Victor. He's very friendly.
Good to see you. Fantastic.
Yeah, no, really, really enjoyed the conversation, David, and thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and have a great day. Cheers.